It came out in 2010, and it was the first online initiative, the absolute first online initiative to bring awareness and find discussions for the out of wedlock rate in our Black community. I was the only fucking one to come up and say that this idea that Black women believing and the men who they're pregnant with saying that we can be both mother and father, it's not working out. These men need to be responsible. Black women need to start expecting the fathers of their children to stick around and raise them. I got back in 2010, I got 100 bloggers to write at the same time about this issue because the Black media, and that includes like Ebony, Essence, BET, all of the places at the time that these issues should have been discussed were not being discussed. But the viral campaign of No Wedding, No Womb, which is also endorsed by Speech from Arrested Development, who did a whole song about it. Like, you guys are so young, you don't even know of the work that I did on this because I'm so passionate of it. And I will get into more details about why I'm passionate about it later on. And so I could see, as somebody who was raised Gen X, I could see the destructive messages of alienating an essential part of our child development, which is the father, and then expecting everything to come out the same way. Like in the 90s, you guys, there was this impression that with the help of government assistance and with the new opportunities that civil rights had granted us after 1968, many Black women fell under the impression that they didn't need a father for their children. And to be fair, the reason why it got to the point that it did was because before then the men weren't necessarily sticking around to raise these kids. Like Lyndon Johnson and them had to do the war on poverty because these folks were out here leaving their kids and the mothers of their kids to literally starve. Starve. There was no safety net at all. And so when you present to a group of women who is sketchy, whether or not, and say you are, Miss Lily across town, Miss Lily lives with her mama, but Mr. Jackson, who got a whole family on East 52nd Street, is coming over to you and messing with you and gets you pregnant, and there's nothing, literally, there's no safety net, there's nothing. You better pray and hope that mama, grandmama, granddaddy, daddy got you. And that was the reality of the situation. So the government stepped in because it was, quite frankly, necessary to do so. The things that they did, the stipulations that they made the Black family exponentially worse because of the stipulations they made about being married, about having a man in the home, et cetera, et cetera. It is where you get the trope welfare took Black men out of the home. It's like, oh, baby mamas took Black men out of the home. It's not, listen, that's where it came from. It came from the fact that poor Black women absolutely needed the help of the government because this kind of stuff was going on and they weren't getting help. Also, because of racism that happened in this community, that happened in this country, the jobs were spotty for Black men. Listen, I've done the research on this so that I can be fair and objective. And like, instead of just saying bullshit to make people mad, to incense people, to continue a gender war, it's both. It was both. There were so many subtleties. Black women didn't take black men out of the home, and black men didn't really walk out of the home. The government made certain decisions and stipulations about the war on poverty and aid to dependent families and children that caused an alienation of the black nuclear family, and that's a fact. But the results of it were that black women could, and I saw, benefit financially of having children as many as they like at one point. Like, this is in the 90s. As many as they like. I remember being in high school and Sumiko got pregnant by the black dude in the high school that had like two or three other girls pregnant at the same time. Shane. I can always use these like regular names because nobody's gonna know who they are. Shane. Black dude looked like he had freaking butter colored tartar on his teeth at 16 years old. Yes, I'm saying 16 years old, junior in high school. Shane was funny as hell, but he didn't know how to keep his dick in his pants, and he populated half of Lancaster, California with his unregulated penis. And Sumiko was one of them. And she got kicked out of the house. And I asked my mother if Sumiko could stay with us. I always wanted a sister. You know, she was doing stuff that I would never dream of doing at 16 years old. So it was like popcorn eating time for me. And so my parents out for her to stay there for a few months. And so she goes on it. She allows them. My parents allowed her to stay while she got her paperwork from the government so she could get her own place, et cetera, et cetera. So she goes on. She has the baby. There's something wrong with the baby. The baby dies. And you would think, like, okay, this is a horrible thing. My baby died. I did all this preparation and everything else. The baby died. And instead of being like, okay, maybe this was not the right time for my child to be born, maybe this was not the right time for me to be a mother, she went on and found another person to get pregnant by, and another, and another, and another, and another. I lost track of how many children Sumiko had as a gaggle behind her by the time it was all over. But she got a lot of money. She got her own place. She didn't have to worry about, child support because the government became the provider. And that inherently is a problem. Why is that a problem? Not because black men are just naturally lazy and degenerate. I'm sure some are. In fact, I know some are. But it really is about human proclivities and behavior. Human beings like to do what is the easiest thing. They want to take the least hard road. And so imagine your government saying to you, hey, you have a kid by Pookie and Ray Ray? Oh, that's so sad. But we can set you up with Section 8 housing. We can set you up with food stamps. We can set you up with like a check on the 1st and 15th. And so, okay. I'm sorry all those things happened to you, but We have the answers for you. We really want to care for you. Okay. And then it became kind of prolific. And out of that came the idea that uh black women in particular, oh, I don't need no man to have a family and raise my kids. Because the system was artificially it was artificially rigged to make that possible. And like, women, can we just acknowledge that that is the fact? Here's how we can acknowledge that this is a fact and objectively true. Before AFDC and before the war on poverty, a black woman could not say, without support, without money, without food, and without shelter, she could not say with her whole chest, I can be both mother and father to this child. No fucking way. But when you add the artificial assistance, then you can say that with your chest because you've got a backup. That makes sense to me. That makes common sense. I can understand the men's perspective, right? I can also understand the woman's perspective. But it did not do us any favors in terms of our community and the outcomes of that community. So how do I know? Because I'm older than most of you. I'll be 52 years old in July. And I was a very observant person. I'm terrible at math, but I'm really, really, really good with patterns. And so the patterns that I saw from when I was in high school and seeing all these girls get pregnant by this, by the same degenerate guys, going on AFDC, being with these hoodlums, going to their AFDC apartments, seeing their children sleeping on the couch while they had, their Pookie or Ray Ray in the other room. I saw all of it, and I was like, this ain't it. I saw all of that and still became a baby mama myself. Okay. I saw all of that and I still fell victim to it. And then when I was caught up in that situation, guess what I needed? The food stamps. I needed the AFDC. I needed all of that. Why? Because the father of my child, who was black, college educated, did not have any outside children at the time, had not been to jail, had graduated from an SBCU, told me that despite both of our carelessness in our sexual experiences, because I've got to be accountable for it, even though I told him, listen, I'm getting off of birth control, we're going to have to try something else because the folks got me scared that the birth control of the 1990s, which is very different than the birth control that is available now. The birth control that was available in the 1990s had all of us scared, like, can we even have kids after